Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Ace Football Academy. I am Coach Hamilton, and tonight I am alongside no one. Coach Dunham had to head to Cincinnati to visit some family, so you are stuck with just me tonight. And I'm going to do something that we have never done before on this podcast. So let me give you a little background to what I'm thinking, what I'm doing tonight, and then I will deliver the podcast. Back in the summer of 2022, I reached out to Coach Dunham. Well, Coach Dunham and I talked, and I threw out this idea of hosting a soccer podcast. I listened to several, thought soccer in our area was growing exponentially, and I just thought that it would work. In November of 2022, we recorded our first podcast, if you remember, under the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. As we went to build our brand and get our LLC and do things like that, we learned that we could not do the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. We switched it to ACE, to the ACE Football Academy podcast, and it is a change that I am so glad we made. It's more about who Coach Dunham and I are as people, more of what we live by when we are on the sidelines coaching and sidelines training youth athletes. So we changed our name. We ran our podcast. We have grown. Thank you to everyone who has ever tuned in and listened. And, we have listeners from overseas that, have moved away and they live over in Germany and England now that still tune in. It's always cool for us to check our podcast stats and see that we are being listened to in all of these wild places. Over the course of those last, I guess almost 3 years now, we have over 5,000 downloads, which I know isn't a ton, and he and I both know that, but there are just so many things about it that make two guys from small town Richmond, Kentucky so proud. We also have done a lot in the community with trainings and with 3v3 and things like that we are both so very proud of. Our futsal Saturdays were a big hit. Things that we want to continue to do and continue to grow. And so, what I love most is I'm looking back at our top episodes, and still our number 2 listened to episode is episode 1, which is just kind of wild to me that's still the second highest listened to episode. We introduced ourselves. We talked about the World Cup that was upcoming. And you guys have still downloaded it. You guys are still listening to it. So that was just the road has been a lot of fun for me. So when Dunham told me he couldn't be on tonight, I told him, I threw around some ideas. I reached out to some people to come on, and then I kind of decided to, be a little selfish and see if I couldn't take the next step with ACE. I went to Coach Dunham several months ago and said, hey, I think I want to start a blog. Would you be interested in trading off writing with me? And he was just like, no, I don't want to do that, which is fine. Not everyone's a writer. Not everyone wants to do that. But it is something that I wanted to do. I actually several months ago wrote my first blog piece. I shared it with Coach Dunham. He's been nothing but supportive of me. And, he said, hey, yeah, he's like, that's awesome, man. Do it. When I talked to him tonight about what we were going to do tonight, I said, hey, Coach, I may vocalize that first. He was like, do it. I hope you crush it. I hope, people are into it. And so that is what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to use the ACE audience, the ACE parents and families and players that listen to tonight's episode. I really, really, really want your feedback, whether you put it on the Facebook post where we post, whether you put it on the X post that we post, whether you comment or message me individually, or comment or message on our Facebook page or our Twitter page. I really, really want your feedback because this is something that I think I want to do, but it is kind of scary on a personal level, and Just like I felt when Dunham and I recorded that first podcast, I am nervous about recording this first. I guess the word I'm looking for is blog, but it is, or do they call it a vlog or something, a video? I don't know. But ultimately, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm just going to read you my first blog that I had written. I will tell you that it was, or it is, part of a multi-blog series. And so I'm just going to read, and then at the end, I'll wrap it up a little bit, tell you what my thoughts are, tell you what my plans are, and then based on viewer comments, I don't know, I may pursue it or maybe I don't. So here we go. The first blog that I wrote was called The Season That Changed Me. Sir, Mr. Official, may I have a word? In the fall of 2014, I was walking off the pitch as an official when I was approached by a gentleman that I had never met before. As you can imagine, my guard went up immediately and two thoughts entered my mind. The first, where's the site manager to get me out of here? And the second, I actually thought I called a really good match. That was the night that I decided to get into coaching. The gentleman introduced himself as the athletic director of a local middle school and inquired about whether I had ever had thoughts about getting into the coaching profession. I hadn't. He had an opening for his middle school girls team. I was recommended and he wanted to know if I was interested. I wasn't. Fast forward 4 months, and after holding several discussions with my parents, my sisters, former coaches, and friends, I changed my mind. In the fall of 2015, I became the head coach at B. Michael Caudle Middle School. I spent 2 seasons there and was instantly successful, winning the middle school conference title in my second season. Now, I'm the first to admit that I had very little to do with that. As a rookie coach, just the talent I had was crazy good. After my second season, the head coach of Madison Central High School approached me about my interest in becoming his assistant and JV coach. I wasn't. This time, I was a little quicker to change my mind. And Coach Dunham, the very Coach Dunham who sits beside me on this podcast every night or every week, met to discuss the potential partnership. And in the fall of 2017, I started coaching at the high school level. My first year, Coach Dunham gifted me with a loaded roster, and we had a very successful season. I began dreaming of my own program. My second season as JV coach might not have been filled with as many wins as I was used to, but the players liked me, we had a good time, so I felt like I was winning the battle. Throughout my time as JV coach, there were some moments when I had to fill in for Coach Dunham on the varsity level, and I actually started 2-0 as interim coach. At the end of my second season, anyone notice a theme here? Coach Dunham announced he was stepping down to be with his family, and I was privileged enough to be hired and have the opportunity to take over. Leading up to my first season as the guy in charge is where things started to change for me as a coach. I found a podcast hosted by J.P. Nurbin and Nate Sanderson called The Coaching Culture. Their podcast focuses on becoming the transformational coach versus the transactional coach, and I realized that this is what I wanted to be. I'm going to break off here from the blog just real quickly. When we talk about transformational versus transactional, it is ultimately about what this podcast has always been about. Transformational, building better people through the game of soccer, whether it is leadership, whether it is being a good teammate, whether it is cooperation, whatever it is. That is what transformational coaching does. Transactional coaching is more of those, hey, I am focused on the wins and losses, and that's all that matters in our program. Back to the blog. I wanted to build a culture that would improve my athletes both on and off the pitch and set them up for success in life. I even had the opportunity to speak with J.P. Nurbin, and I began to take their ideas and run with them. The fall of 2019, again, largely thanks to a talented roster, found us ending the season as district champions, the school's 8th in a row. However, in that season, I truly began to feel like I knew what I was doing. I made some changes to the lineup, adjustments on and off the field, and it ended up with a district championship. I entered that offseason on cloud 9. I knew what I had coming back to Madison Central, and that next season, I knew what I had coming back to Madison Central that next season, and I was ready to make history. It's funny how things change so quickly. I lived off the Coaching Culture podcast and learned so much. It is still a podcast that I listen to daily. I began developing my program around core values that were important to me. ACE, or attitude, commitment, and effort. I chose an incoming senior and junior to read a book with me, which I learned from the Coaching Culture podcast, leading up to the season, and began hosting preseason one-on-one meetings with players. It was this season that changed me as a coach. It's easy to preach being a transformational leader when you are winning district championships and beating your crosstown rivals every time you play them. You learn, like I did, that all those positives can change really quickly when the losses start piling up. The things I did and said when sitting at 2-7 with that team, the things I did and said when sitting at 2-7 with what should have been a loaded roster are not something I am proud of. And looking back at this season, I realized that the only person to blame was myself. So that was the first blog that I wrote. Again, I want to turn it into a kind of a 3-4, I don't know how many part series. I truly appreciate you giving me the time to listen to this. If you stuck with me for this, 12 to 15 minute podcast, this is what ACE is all about. This is where I learned who I was as a coach back in 2018. It changed me. I've been coaching for 4 years, and I thought I knew it all. I thought I was the top dog. I thought I was just this person that was always going to have successful teams. And so when this roster came back, and my roster is stacked with girls that were great. And everything that happened that season leading up to the fallout that I will post on my next blog are things that continue to shape me as who I am as a coach right now. Fast forward to today, I feel like I'm a pretty darn good soccer coach. I know the game much better. Again, I stepped off the field in 2017 as an official. I had played in high school. I had officiated since high school, but I never coached it. And so I stepped in very green. Stepped into a team that was loaded. Stepped into a second team that was really loaded. We won a middle school championship. Stepped into a JV squad that went undefeated our first season. And so things for me really started to spiral out of control a little bit when it came to wins and losses. Clearly, and as you'll hear in the second blog, I thought I was much better than I was as a coach. And through the Coaching Culture podcast, which if you are a coach, I highly recommend. It is not directed towards soccer coaches. It is just directed toward coaches in general. And JP Nurbin and Nate Sanderson are fantastic. When I found the podcast, I started from episode 1 and I just started listening. Just day after day, every time I got in my truck, it was what I listened to. I still listen to them daily when they put out their podcast releases. And they changed me as a coach. They changed me as a person. And so I truly believe that. I guess what I'm asking for now is the ACE Football Academy's response to, are you interested? Do you want to hear more? And I promise you will not hurt my feelings if you're like, no, hey, would you just go back to talking soccer? Because I know we have a really good following. I know we have so much stuff going on that is successful in our community. And I don't want to overwhelm people. So you can absolutely say, hey, stick to soccer. Hey, stick to what you all talk about on your Friday footy talks. But I do want your honest opinion. If this is something you're interested in, please reach out to me. Again, you can reach out on Facebook. You can reach out on X. You can reach out to me personally. You can reach out in a multiple numbers of ways to our email address. But I just want to know your thoughts. And am I a crazy person to think that this blog might have some legs underneath it? Or should I, be, hey, you got a good thing going with the podcast and let's just keep it going? Anyway, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. I told you I'd keep it short. I tried to keep this as short as possible tonight. This is our very different Friday Footy Talk. Coach Dunham will be back next week. I appreciate you tuning in. Coach Hamilton, this is Friday Footy Talk from the Ace Football Academy. Go kick some ace.